Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tech Talk Central. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Sarah.
And today, we're diving deep into something I think a lot of people are really interested in.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Sony A95L versus the Samsung S95D,
Ooh, yeah. A big matchup.
a battle of the titans, if you will.
Absolutely.
When it comes to picture quality, which one is actually better?
Yeah. Well, Nathan, these are two of the leading 65-inch 4K TVs out there right now.
Absolutely.
And they both say they have incredible picture quality. But as always, it's in the details.
The devil's in the details. So we've been doing a lot of research, looking through all the specs and reading expert reviews and just digging through user feedback, trying to really figure out what those key details are.
Oh, yeah.
That might make a difference for someone trying to decide between these two TVs.
It's amazing. On the surface, they both sound incredible.
Right.
But how they actually achieve that incredible picture quality really comes down to the different display technologies they're using.
Okay, so let's set the stage here for our viewers. Samsung, they're sticking with their tried and true OLED technology for the S95D.
Right.
But Sony has gone with the newer QD-OLED technology for the A95L.
Right.
Can you just break down for us just the fundamental differences between those two display technologies?
Sure. So with traditional OLED, like in the S95D, you've got organic light emitting diodes, which basically means
Okay.
each pixel is its own light source and can turn on and off completely. And that gives it that incredible contrast, with those true blacks and vibrant colors. But OLED has traditionally been a little bit limited when it comes to peak brightness.
Okay, so that's where the QD-OLED comes in.
Exactly. So QD-OLED, like what you see in the Sony A95L, adds a layer of quantum dots
Okay.
to that OLED structure. And these quantum dots are like tiny nanocrystals that emit light of very specific colors when they're hit by blue light from the OLED panel. And that allows for a wider color gamut. And most importantly, it increases the potential for brightness.
Gotcha. So in theory, QD-OLED could give you the best of both worlds. You get the inky blacks, the perfect contrast of OLED, but then you add in the higher brightness. Right. But how does that actually translate into, what you're going to see on the screen when you're watching these TVs?
Right. Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And both Samsung and Sony are making some pretty bold claims about their respective technologies.
Well, yeah, Samsung is really pushing their OLED glare-free technology for the S95D, and Sony's highlighting features like Cognitive Processor XR and XR True Luminous Max in the E95L. I mean, these are some pretty high-tech terms. Can you just kind of break them down for us so we can understand what they actually mean for the viewer?
Sure. So let's start with Samsung's OLED glare-free. That's basically a really, really good anti-glare coating that they put on the screen.
Okay.
And, OLED panels are known for being a little bit susceptible to reflections, especially if you've got a bright room. But Samsung says that this new technology really minimizes those reflections unless you see that picture without it being washed out by ambient light.
So for people that have a lot of natural light in their viewing space, this sounds like a really big deal.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have to worry about squinting or closing the curtains in the middle of the day.
Exactly. Now, Sony's Cognitive Processor XR. This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Sony says that this processor is designed to think like a human brain.
Okay.
It analyzes the image and actually adjusts various elements to create a more realistic picture.
Think like a human brain.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty advanced. But what does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah, so basically it's using some sophisticated algorithms that go beyond just, looking at the pixels. The processor actually considers color and contrast motion, even the focal point of the image. And it can adjust those things in real time to make the viewing experience much more natural.
Wow. So it's not just about sharpness or saturation. It's about understanding the whole picture and optimizing it for how our brains work.
Yeah, and that ties into Sony's XR True Luminous Max technology, which basically just means they're expanding the color palette that the TV can show. And that's all thanks to those quantum dots in the QD OLED panel that allow for just this huge range of colors, which should give you a much more vibrant and nuanced picture.
So you're combining a really smart processor with a display technology that can show this huge spectrum of colors.
Right.
And it sounds pretty impressive.
It does, but we can't forget about Samsung and what they bring to the table.
Right.
In addition to that OLED glare-free technology, they've got OLED HDR Pro and Motion Accelerator 144 Hz, and those are both really aimed at delivering exceptional picture quality.
So OLED HDR Pro, it sounds like it's all about boosting that brightness and contrast
Yeah.
for HDR content.
Exactly. HDR, high dynamic range, is all about expanding the range of brightness and color so the TV can display more realistic images. And Samsung's OLED HDR Pro technology combines these advanced algorithms and hardware to really optimize that HDR content.
So you get those really vibrant colors, the bright highlights and deep shadows
Right?
that make HDR so cool.
Exactly. And then motion accelerator 144 hertz. That sounds like it's all about making sure you have smooth motion when you're watching things like sports or action movies.
Exactly. So motion accelerator, that's Samsung's motion interpolation system, and it basically inserts additional frames into the video signal so things look smoother.
Uh-huh.
And then the 144 hertz refers to the refresh rate of the panel, which means it can display up to 144 frames per second.
Wow. That's a lot of frames.
It is.
So I can only imagine how smooth those action scenes must look. But Sony also has some tricks up its sleeve when it comes to motion handling, right?
Absolutely. They have XR motion clarity,
Okay.
which is their own motion processing technology. It's
Yeah.
not quite as high as 144 hertz, but it still does a really good job of making motion look smooth and natural without introducing artifacts.
Okay, so it sounds like we've got a real battle of the titans here.
We do.
Each TV is bringing its A game to the table.
AR. Now let's go head-to-head on those key picture quality factors.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start with brightness.
Okay.
Which is super important, especially for HDR content, and both TVs are really stepping up their game here.
Yeah, so how are they approaching brightness and what are we actually looking at?
Well, the Sony A95L, with its QD-OLED technology, it's really built for peak brightness. Those quantum dots we talked about earlier, they play a big role here by converting blue light into a wider spectrum of colors. QD-OLED can get much brighter than traditional OLED while still maintaining those deep blacks and great contrast.
So the A95L is going for those super bright highlights that make HDR content really pop.
Exactly. Sony says it's actually 200% brighter than its predecessor,
Wow.
which is pretty impressive, and you can really see the difference when you're watching HDR content, especially in a bright room.
Okay, so what about Samsung? Are they just conceding defeat in the brightness battle?
No, not at all. They're claiming infinite brightness with their OLED HDR Pro technology.
Infinite brightness.
Yeah, but infinite brightness is more of a marketing term than anything else.
Okay.
It's not like it's actually infinitely bright, but the S95D can definitely get very bright, especially with HDR content.
Gotcha. So it sounds like both TVs can deliver a bright, vibrant picture.
Yeah.
But the A95L might have a slight edge when it comes to pure brightness.
Yeah, possibly, but brightness isn't everything. We also need to talk about color accuracy, which is just as important for a good viewing experience.
Okay, so how do these TVs stack up on color accuracy?
Well, Samsung with the S95D, they're really focused on color accuracy. They're using Pantone validated colors, which means the colors you see on the screen are going to be as close as possible to what the director intended.
So if you really care about seeing colors exactly the way they were meant to be seen,
Right.
then the S95D sounds like the way to go.
Yeah, and then you've got the Sony A95L with its XR True Luminous Max technology, and they're taking a slightly different approach. They're not just focused on accuracy, they're trying to create a wider range of colors for a more vibrant picture.
Okay, so the A95L is pushing the limits on color volume and vibrancy, while the S95D is more about being true to the original source material.
Exactly.
Interesting. So it really comes down to personal preference there.
Exactly. And then the last thing we need to talk about is glare, which is a big deal for a lot of people.
Yeah, especially if you have a lot of windows in your living room.
Right. And Samsung has really gone all out with their OLED glare-free technology on the S95D.
Yeah, a lot of reviewers have been saying great things about it.
Yeah, it seems to be very effective at minimizing reflections, even in bright rooms. So if you're someone who struggles with glare on your current TV, this could be a game changer.
Definitely. And what about the Sony? Does it have any anti-glare features?
Well, they haven't really highlighted anything specific. It probably does a decent job, but the S95D with its dedicated anti-glare technology might be the better choice if you have a lot of natural light in your viewing space.
Makes sense. So if you watch TV in a dark room, the A95L with its brightness and wider color gamut might be the way to go. But if you've got a lot of windows, the S95D might be a better choice.
Yeah. It really depends on your individual needs at the end of the day. Both the Sony A95L and the Samsung S95D are fantastic TVs with incredible picture quality. The A95L with its QD-OLED and powerful processing, it really pushes the boundaries of brightness and color for a very immersive HDR experience.
Yeah, and the S95D excels at color accuracy and glare reduction. So it's really going to give you a faithful representation of what you're watching, even in a bright room.
Exactly. So you really need to think about your own viewing habits, what's important to you, and of course your budget.
Yeah, you got to factor that in. Choose the TV that's right for you to help you out. We've included links to the latest prices and deals for both the Sony A95L and the Samsung S95D down in the description below.
And be sure to subscribe to Tech Talk Central for more in-depth tech comparisons like this one.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.